So again, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on this lovely pre-spring evening in early March or mid-March. I'm Pat Tutwiler, proud superintendent of the Lynn Public Schools. I thank you because I know these are busy times and families have busy schedules, but I appreciate you joining us this evening for a discussion about the Lynn Public Schools strategic plan and a really wonderful and I think timely funding opportunity and some of the feedback that we've gotten from you on it. And so again, for this evening, there are, I can get this to advance, awesome. The objective for this evening, in part is a presentation, but it's also to solicit some input from you about the priorities that we've identified, and they were identified back in 2019 to leverage this new state funding initiative. And so as you can see in the agenda, the plan is to do a high-level overview of the strategic plan, talk a little bit about the Student Opportunity Act and what it means for the Lynn Public Schools, and then update you on the implementation of the Student Opportunity Act in partnership with the strategic plan, and then ask for your feedback as far as the selection of those priorities, and I think equally important if we are missing things. Again, for folks who have just joined, if you require Spanish translation, there is a globe at the bottom of your screen. If you would select that and choose Spanish, you can hear this in Spanish, and I'll ask Guillermo to come back on the English side to explain that one more time.
Sí, para esas personas que vinieron a la reunión, si hablan español y prefieren, pueden apretar un botón en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Hay un botón con un globo del mundo. Si apretan esa imagen, pueden cambiar el idioma y me pueden escuchar a mí en español. Entonces, si hablan español, pueden apretar ese botón y seleccionar español y me van a escuchar a mí. Es la misma presentación, pero yo la estoy traduciendo al español.
Thank you, Guillermo.
All right.
And with respect to the presentation, where we could, the slides will have both English and Spanish. From time to time, I'll have to show the slides separately so that folks can access all of the language on the slide. So quickly, I want to do a quick historical and go back to the 2018-2019 school year. This is the year that the district worked in earnest with a consultant to develop a robust plan to improve in key areas over the course of 4 to 5 school years. The development of the Lynn Public Schools strategic plan spanned over the entire 2018-2019 school year and involved input from students, staff, families, and leadership alike. A leadership team comprised of all building principals and all directors in the district, as well as what was called an inclusive planning team, which was comprised of students, families, and community partners and educators, worked in tandem to make sense of all the input we were gathering, as well as other data over a period of years, looking back over a period of years. Together, we developed the strategic plan, which included a new mission, vision, core values, and 4 strategic objectives and specific outcomes we expected to see over the duration of the plan. Key in this plan was an aspirational vision, one that reflects our core values as a district and the community, and what we hope to be true for each student in the Lynn Public Schools. And that vision is drawing upon the strength of our community, our families, our students, and our partners. The Lynn Public Schools commits to fulfilling the intellectual, physical, and social emotional potential of all of our students. We work together so our students learn to thrive, advance, and impact the greater community and the world. The plan features 4 strategic objectives, which are pasted in this slide. They are ambitious objectives, ones that require a thoughtful and disciplined approach over a period of time. As you look at each one of these boxes, the simplest way to approach their meaning is by thinking about evolution. Over the course of the plan, we expect to evolve in the way that we are reaching students academically. We endeavor to evolve the development of cultures in our school buildings, as well as the effort to provide mental health supports in each school. We view families and caregivers as our partners and thus seek to strengthen our partnership through specific actions over the duration of the plan. It's going to move it to the Spanish version. And finally, we seek to do our level best with facilities updates or replacement to ensure that the school environment is safe and conducive for learning. I'll just give a moment for our Spanish-speaking guests to read the slide. Sometimes, and those who know them would know this, sometimes strategic plans have a bad reputation. The belief is that lots of effort goes into developing them, and then they sit on a shelf somewhere. This is not the case with ours. Our plan is alive and well and drives decision-making. Each year, the strategic plan serves as the foundation for goal setting, school improvement planning, professional learning, and budget development. What I just described to you was our strategic plan at a very, very high level. Strategic plans involve thinking and decision-making for sure. They typically require funding as well. Accordingly, while we were finalizing our strategic plan, there was a movement at the state level to address a funding formula that had not been touched for more than 20 years. Under a proposal called the Student Opportunity Act, school districts like ours stood to receive significant increases in state funding over a period of 7 years. The state is committing more than $1 billion to this effort. This resulted in a state funding increase for Lynn of $14 million, which impacts the current year. In the governor's budget for the 22-23 school year, next school year, the increase is $28 million. Which is historic, I should say. The increase in funding came with some specific guidelines and requirements. The district was required to engage in broad stakeholder input to develop a plan for closing opportunity gaps for specific groups of students for whom the state has underfunded for decades, namely, low-income students, students for whom English is not their first language, and students with disabilities. During the fall of 2019, we engaged in stakeholder input, a broad stakeholder input effort. Through the voices of students, staff, and families, we developed 6 areas of focus. All 6 are pasted here. It should be noted that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education also has requirements for this funding. The funding must be leveraged to support research-based efforts in our schools. Additionally, the funding cannot be used to purchase or build a new building, although quite a bit of the feedback suggested that we use the funding for it. With both the, hold on one second, yeah. With both the development of the strategic plan and the development of the Student Opportunity Act plan, stakeholder input was the centerpiece. In the development of both, we used surveys, forums, focus groups, and other means to understand what was important to our community. Here, you can see the tight alignment between our strategic objectives and the Student Opportunity Act priorities. Again and again, our community is expressing the same needs and expressing the same, requesting supports in the same areas. I personally think this consistency is a very good thing. A moment for folks to review this slide. With the consistency and input over the development of the strategic plan and the Student Opportunity Act plan, we began leveraging the funds to address the needs identified by the community. Over the next 3 slides, including the current slide, I will give you some examples of how we have done so. Strategic objective number 2 focuses on developing strong school cultures and responding to the social and emotional needs for each and every student. Given that mental health was a priority identified through stakeholder input for the Student Opportunity Act plan, we leveraged that funding to add 19 social workers and 3 school adjustment counselors for the current school year, which is the first year of the Student Opportunity Act funding. This represents a 56% increase in our clinical staffing. That is a significant impact in just the first year of the Student Opportunity Act plan, but it also pushes us forward on meeting strategic objective number 2. And as folks are listening, if questions arise, I am going to use the Q&A feature on this webinar to respond to those questions. And I'll do so at the close of this presentation, which we are nearing actually. Strategic objective number 1 calls for us to improve instruction and learning experiences in ways that reach all students. This strategic objective calls for us to improve supports through services with for students with disabilities. Through stakeholder input for the Student Opportunity Act plan, the same needs arose. Therefore, we took a significant step forward, leveraging Student Opportunity Act funding in its first year to add 31 new special education positions. While we still have a ways to go in this work, this represents a commitment to addressing a need that the community has identified. And as a third example, in keeping with the same strategic objective on meeting the learning needs of all students, we leverage Student Opportunity Act funding in its first year, which is this year, to add 11 English as a second language teachers. Doing so helps us move closer to manageable caseloads and meeting the recommended number of minutes of English as a second language instruction. There are also expenditures that we've made in the first year of the Student Opportunity Act funding, but there are other ones, excuse me, but this gives you an example of how we've leveraged the funding in response to the needs and consistent feedback from the community. I think that it's also important to understand that, again, we're in the first of 7 years of increased funding. The district was underfunded for 20 plus years. It will take some time to get us where we need to be. We want to stay with you, and we want to stay current on what the community believes is important. A lot has happened over the past 2.5 years. Rather than continue with input that was gathered over the course of the 2018-2019 school year and the fall of 2019, we thought it was important to revisit the 6 priorities outlined in the Student Opportunity Act plan and ask the community if it believed that these were still the right areas of focus. A survey was distributed to staff and families. This went out on March 1st, I believe. While the participation rates weren't quite as high as expected, those who did indicated overwhelmingly that the 6 areas of focus remain important, to the tune of 76% of the respondents. 13% disagreed. Respondents were given an opportunity to provide additional areas of focus, things that they think are missing or not part of the 6 priorities that we've already identified. Most of the respondents who typed something in that field indicated something that was related to one of the 6 areas of focus. In the narrative feedback, there was heavy emphasis on facilities, hiring additional staff to decrease class sizes, particularly at the secondary level, and then compensating them appropriately. And with that, with the folks who are here on this call this evening, I want to sort of take the temperature and understand what your thinking is. I'm going to stop my share here. And ask you if I can activate this poll to respond to the following. Are the priorities that we just listed, the 6 priorities, still valid? A lot has happened over the past 2.5 years, and we just want to get a sense for, what people are thinking about related to those 6 priorities. Are these still, in fact, things that the district should continue to invest, continue to emphasize with strategy and resources? Just about half of the folks on this call have responded. I'll give it another second or two. Okay. Got just shy of 70% of the folks on the call who participated. I will close this poll in about 5 seconds. So if you could enter your thinking. Okay. And just want to show you how you responded. Vast majority of folks still feel like we've got a lot of work to do in those areas. I share that thinking. Thank you for your feedback there. But now I want to ask a different question, and I'll go back to sharing my screen in just a moment. I do want to note that there were folks who don't think that those areas that we're missing the mark as it relates to those 6 priorities. And then some folks who are perhaps maybe a little unsure. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity if you are either in any one of those categories, yes, no, or maybe, to offer your thinking. 1 second here. And so then, you know, as I described over the course of the presentation, I indicated that the Student Opportunity Act priorities and our district plan, strategic plan are really tightly aligned, which I think is a really good thing. But I'm interested in your thinking. What's missing? What do you feel or see there to be a lack of emphasis on? Are there challenges or areas of the student experience, of the family experience that there's little or not enough attention to? I'm going to invite you to use the Q&A feature, which should be right at the bottom of your Zoom screen, to enter your thinking there. If you feel that there's something missing, not captured in anything that I've said that really should be an area of focus, or that we should be thinking about as we move forward, leveraging what I think is a really unique opportunity in terms of the increased funding. I'm going to give you a moment to respond in the Q&A. And I'll answer a couple of the questions in there while folks are thinking and responding there. Yes, you can see the slideshow for later. I'm actually recording this and I will post it tomorrow. Things like there was a question about traffic assistance. And by that, I assume the author means crossing guards. We really work hand in hand with the Lynn Police to ensure that there are enough crossing guards and that they are, you know, able to do their job, creating a safe scenario for students and families across the street during the busiest times in the morning and at dismissal. But that particular position does sit in the police department. This community member did mention a particular school, so I can look into that a little bit further. Okay. And if there's, because the overwhelming majority of folks chose, you know, said yes, they feel like those are the right priorities. Perhaps there's, you know, there aren't a lot of areas that folks feel like there should be additional or some emphasis. And so I will open it now to responding to your questions about this presentation, about the funding, about what's possible with it. If you're interested in more information as it relates to the strategic plan, I'm happy to speak to that. But this is really, I didn't want to spend the entire evening talking at you. I'd rather engage with you. And the means to do that, the mechanism for doing that is the Q&A. And I see one comment here expressing excitement about the increase in clinicians. And then there's a question about if we've considered alternatives to PBIS, which is the Positive Behavior and Interventions. It's a program that exists in a number of our schools. Have been significant training. At present, the focus has really been on PBIS as really shifting the mindset around school culture and how we deal with scenarios where a student breaks a rule. I know that there are other approaches to this, restorative justice being one of them. Interestingly, our 8th grade students are engaged with their civics projects right now, and there seems to be a pretty, noticeable interest by them in the restorative justice approach, which is, definitely research suggests is effective. But my quick answer to that is right now we are pretty heavily anchored in PBIS, but that doesn't mean that we can't evolve and incorporate bits and pieces of other programs. So there's a comment here that I hope there are enough enrichment opportunities for other students who are not in the categories that you've mentioned. And I think that's an area where we can really partner. Yes, absolutely. The Student Opportunity Act is specifically designed to address needs of groups of students that the state has underfunded districts like ours in trying to meet those students' needs. And so much of those funds really have to be directed toward meeting those students' needs, but that doesn't mean that there isn't also interest in and plans for other students who might not fit that profile. One really clear example is our deep investment at the high school level in the early college program, which allows high school students to take college classes at either North Shore Community College or Salem State free of charge and earn both high school credit and college credit at the same time, both providing savings for families, but I think most importantly, giving students the experience of understanding what it's like to take a college class, demystifying that experience. We see that as a real game changer. This year, Lynn is second in the state of Massachusetts in terms of the number of students participating in early college. It's a little less than 500 students who are participating. Worcester is the school district with the largest number. They're probably twice the size of Lynn. So we're really proud of programs like that. And there are other programs, after school opportunities, robotics and things of that nature that are really designed to be enrichment for all students, but not specifically targeted to the groups of students that I talked about in the presentation: low income, students with disability, and English learners. So the answer to that question is yes. There's a comment that more attention needs to be put into our nonverbal students when speaking about speech therapy, having more assistive and AAC specialists in the special education department. I could not agree more. I mean, this is an area where we attempted to make a significant step this year. We added 8 speech therapists to our staff district-wide this year with the hopes of bringing down the caseloads that speech therapists have. And, you know, this, you know, phenomenon, I guess I'll call it that, called the Great Resignation, where, you know, school districts like ours or all school districts found it really hard to hire staff for the current school year. I mean, we've turned every stone and really tried to, you know, fill all of those positions, but we struggled mightily, and unfortunately, we're not able to. I am cautiously optimistic about next year. And again, we will have compensatory time for all of those students whose services were not, did not receive services this year. But I'm cautiously optimistic about next year and our ability to fill all of those positions. There's a comment, class sizes should be a priority at all levels, not just the secondary. The class sizes should be consistent across the district, and if not, maybe consider redistribution. Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with that comment conceptually. What I would say is that our elementary class sizes generally are pretty good this year, and that has a lot to do with a move that we made with the budget coming into this year to not allow any closures of classes due to the class being small. So for example, if in previous years, if there were two first grade sections with 13 students in it, 13 in each, we would collapse that and have one with 26. We didn't do that this year. And so as I look across the district at the elementary level, the class sizes, again, generally are pretty good. Are there departures from that? Yeah, absolutely. And some of that has to do with limits in buildings. So for example, Brickett Elementary, every classroom is used. And when they fill up or when the numbers get high, we always offer families the opportunity to select another school, but the convenience of the neighborhood schools is important and there are siblings involved. So I think it's easier said than done to balance them out across the district. But I would say that the numbers are probably the best that I've seen since I've been in the district, and this is year 7 for me. At the secondary level, that is not the case. There are some extremely high class sizes, and we've tried to address that by offering an opportunity with a respectable pay opportunity for staff to take on another section to bring numbers down. But I can't say, all right, well, I can say that that is not a sustainable solution and has only worked in reducing class size in pockets. Okay, so there's a comment that says being directly involved, I assume, with secondary students every day in the classroom. The biggest struggle has been the mental health support. All students who need Lynn Community Health Therapists are on a 12-month waiting list. We have students in crisis and they don't have consistent support. That is real. I mean, our increase has definitely been felt. I mean, I hear that pretty consistently from building principals and directly from staff, teachers, and additional staff, that the increase in supports, Lynn Public School supports on site has definitely made a difference this year. That does not mean that, you know, it is a perfect situation. It's not. There are still, as the comment mentions, for students who require sort of more intensive supports, there are still wait lists for students who require, you know, services provided, at a location, maybe need to stay more than one day. There's a wait list. Well aware of that. And I think based on what I hear, we meet with Lynn Community Health monthly. They are very close partners of ours. Some of the staffing shortages and challenges that we've experienced in the Lynn Public Schools obviously are felt in other entities and organizations, whether it's hospitals or Lynn Community Health with nurses and medical professionals, but also in mental health questions, mental health supports. There's a comment here about family partnerships. Do you think that family partnerships need to start much earlier, engaging families with young children before they are school age, show them what LPS has to offer before they move away and decide to go elsewhere? I really agree with that. Part of the challenge historically has been capacity, but I think we've got a unique opportunity now to do some of that work. So I really appreciate that comment. Can LPS offer after-school programs for English learners? Absolutely. What I would say about after-school programs, I mean, our first commitment is to servicing students, giving them a quality, robust experience during the day. And then where there are additional needs, providing engagement and collaboration opportunities for students after school. I mean, there absolutely can be. I think being thoughtful about what would work best based on where a student is in terms of grade is important. For example, in high school, as a former high school principal and high school teacher, I don't know that that's always the best approach, because students need to leave, whether they need to care for younger siblings or they need to work, or they're engaged in athletics. After school programs can not be as effective at that level. So it's really important to make sure that supports are being provided during the day. But as for younger students, absolutely, that can be and should be an opportunity for students to engage. There's a comment here: as a parent of a child who has not received help for speech for the past 2 years, when will we start to see this funding have an impact? I've not heard a lot of basic everyday learning. Honestly, Lynn was far behind pre-pandemic, and I could not agree more with that comment. We absolutely were behind pre-pandemic, and I think therein lies the rationale for the Student Opportunity Act, right? So for my first 3 years in this district as deputy superintendent, I would sit at the budget table with the previous superintendent and listen to how we were going to meet the needs of students with disabilities, our students for whom English is not their first language, or multilingual learners, with very little additional funding, right? So you had to make a decision. Either I'm going to fund additional English, math, science teachers at Reed Middle School to bring the class size down from 34, or I'm going to add 1 or 2 speech therapists, and I also need ESL teachers. And boy, wouldn't it be nice for our school counselors at the secondary level to have smaller caseloads so they can provide more individualized attention? That's been asked for every year since I've been here. But you can't do all of that with very small increases. And I mean increases, less than $1 million, which sounds like a lot, but once you start, putting the pieces together for a budget, it really doesn't amount to much. And so this results in the district being unable to effectively provide services. I think the good news is the state figured that out, and Lynn's not alone. I mean, this was the case for districts like ours, Brockton, Lowell, Lawrence, Fall River, New Bedford, districts like that, Revere. So that funding has come up significantly so that we're able to hire additional staff to make sure that those services are being delivered. It just so happens that the first year of that funding happened in the midst of a pandemic, and we weren't able to fill all the positions. Again, I'm expressing cautious optimism about next year and our ability to do so. But rest assured, now that I've seen the request that principals and directors have made in planning for next year in terms of positions, we're planning to take another significant leap in the realm of special education. Okay, somebody likes restorative justice. Okay. I think that students should be more motivated or challenged from elementary school up. Music, arts, something that keeps the kids interested more than just taking classes. More kids from age 5 and up when they start learning and getting interested in things. Thank you for that comment. I mean, I personally think that art and music are just as core to a student's learning as reading, math, science. It is a really important part of their education, and the kids do love it, and they're engaged and they're having fun, but then also learning really important skills and really transferable concepts. And so, in recent years, I mean, we haven't been able to accommodate increases in the arts, and the hope is that the additional funding will give us the elbow room to do so. There's a comment here. I understand that money can't be used for a new building, but more space is needed for students who need a more therapeutic setting, et cetera, like Fallon. Yeah, I mean, right now, Fallon, for folks who don't know, is our Therapeutic Day School for elementary students. We have a similar school for secondary students in fact, O'Leary. Those schools are so important to this district and to the families who are partnered with them. I mean, my sense is that we're doing just fine in terms of those schools. They're not oversubscribed, and we're very thoughtful and intentional about which students are best fit for those programs, so they can get the most out of them. But I do appreciate that comment, because in it I hear and I'm reading that the importance of those programs. So let me get out of the share here. Okay, there's a comment about extracurricular activities and that students are craving them more and more at the secondary level. And the comment goes on to say that students would love, clubs like book clubs, game clubs, more clubs that exceed our budget. Would you give these students some more opportunities in a healthy, safe place after school? Absolutely. And in working with principals, I mean, there are a number of clubs, both at the elementary level and at the secondary level. I personally, having been a secondary or high school principal for 8 years, love the idea of, hey, here's what we offer in terms of clubs. And if you don't see something you like, then propose a new one. And typically that also involves having a staff member advise them and participate with them. And I think that's a place for us to get to, because I agree, those are important every student comes to school for a certain reason, right? Obviously, we want them all to come there for the, to learn and to grow and develop with their peers and with their teachers. But, when you peel back the layers, some students come to school in high school because they love art and they can't wait. They go through English, math, science, social studies, world language, can't wait to get to that art class each day. That's why they get up and come to school. I would say the same is so for clubs. Students are really passionate about something. They want it to be woven into their school's fabric, and we definitely want to support that. Will there be continued funding to LVTI's vocational programs as there has been in the past? The answer to that is absolutely. We've, I think you may or may not know, we just opened a brand new machine shop in partnership with the GE Foundation and a number of other organizations. This was a multi-million-dollar project that added more workspaces, brand new machines, updated technology, because we know that there's an industry need waiting for them when they graduate. Those students will get snatched up for jobs really quickly. And 3 or 4 years ago, we opened an HVAC shop. So we are continuously looking at the programs at Lynn Tech, making sure that we understand industry need. The quick answer to that question is yes. And as part of the commitment, you'll recall that 3 years ago, we opened an 8th grade Discovery Academy at Lynn Tech that students from Breed, Pickering, Marshall can apply to and complete their 8th grade year there. And then there's a discovery program there where students are introduced to various concepts related to career tech education. So there will definitely continue to be a commitment to Lynn Tech. There's a couple of thank yous. Just a thought, there are occupational therapists that specialize in specific areas such as mental health, assistive technology, and so forth. Perhaps there could be an attempt to recruit those folks to fill some of the areas that we've struggled to. I will take that and bring that feedback directly to the Administrator of Special Education, Felicia Jamerson. We have attempted to be very creative in our outreach and attempts to fill these positions. So I appreciate ideas. Perhaps that is a stone we've not turned. I'm a little wary, one community member says, I'm a little wary that a lot of this new funding is going to go to staff and new hires, but not reach our children and help them close the learning gap. We've seen a ton of money spent in the past, and it hasn't seemed to help our kids, especially in areas like Lynn. How can we change this cycle? So, I don't know when that was, when there was a ton of money coming into this district. I'll tell you, in the past 7 years, that has not been the case. I will say right now, it is historic, the amount of funding coming to the district, both from the state and the federal level. And we are being extremely transparent. We are, I am extending my hand and asking for feedback, but then also sharing exactly how that money is being spent. As a matter of fact, for the Student Opportunity Act, we are required to tie all of the expenditures to specific Student Opportunity Act programs. And so, not that if you would like, I recommend that you go to the Lynn Public Schools website. Under departments, you can go to the superintendent's page and find the budget. In the budget, there's a narrative, and I'm happy to post this on maybe the homepage if folks would like to take a look. But in the narrative, there are graphs that look kind of like what I presented this evening that lay out really clearly positions that we have added that are, funded by the Student Opportunity Act, the connection between the priority identified through stakeholder input, and also the connection to the strategic plan objectives. So we are very clear, and I will do that again. We actually engaged a brand new data collection process with our principals and directors that allows us to show in even more robust fashion, how these funds will be spent. So I welcome, phone calls, emails. I'm happy to explain. And I will probably schedule after the school committee has approved the budget, or maybe even before they have, maybe I'll do another town hall and show you exactly how we're planning to allocate the incoming funds. Guillermo, can you help me with, are you able to see the Q&A?
Yes, the question is, in what grade is the opportunity available for early college?
9th. Start that early. And some of you might have seen in the paper, the framework, this was probably 2 months ago, of a plan with North Shore Community College to provide a more immersive experience. And by that, I mean working in partnership with North Shore Community College to launch an early college experience for students where they spend grades 9 through 12 at the college. And so more to come on that. We're still piecing that together, but that will both help with some of the overcrowding at our 2 large early comprehensive schools, but I think equally important, provide a really rich experience for students who feel like that would be a good route for them. And then there's a question, I'm extremely concerned that there isn't going to be enough space for my child at Lynn Tech in the future. What can be done by that? I mean, I want to make sure that I understand that question because it can go 2 ways. In terms of enrollment, I mean, every year Lynn Tech takes as many students as it can accommodate. And that is a school where the core classes, English, math, science, social studies, tend to be pretty large, not quite as large as those at classical and English, but large nonetheless. But they will continue to take the maximum number of students that they can. The other way that I read that question is, will there be space for my child? If you have a child who is in 8th grade and you're concerned about your child not being admitted to Lynn Tech, which is a slightly different way to read that question. What I would say to that, just really quickly, is that Lynn Tech has a new admissions policy and protocol that's designed to broaden, really to open access to a wider array of students. And so they're in the first year of that. My understanding is that process went really well. It does involve an interview, so forth and so on. But if anything, and I don't know who your student is, and I don't know if I'm answering the right question for you, students have a greater chance of getting into Lynn Tech going into next year than they have for, I don't know, 10 plus years. So that is all of the questions that I see in the Q&A. Again, I'm recording this. I will download it and we will post that tomorrow for folks who want to go back to and I can post the slide deck as well, but folks can go back and if they would like, listen to the presentation or listen to my responses to the questions. I generally budget an hour, no pun intended, an hour for my virtual town halls so that folks know, what to expect. They will come, we will spend an hour together, bid each other farewell, but we will come back and do this again. And again, I think just based on one of the comments in there, once the budget has begun to take shape, if I have the blessing of the school committee, I would love to do a town hall just based on, what it is we're planning to propose, and can probably get your feedback going into the presentation to the school committee. With that, I deeply appreciate your partnership. I appreciate your input, your feedback. I welcome you to reach out to me at any time. Tutwiler P, Tutwiler P @linschools.org. Feel free to email me or call the administrative office. I'm happy to speak to you, respond to any specific concern that you might have. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. And special thanks to Guillermo for coming along with me this evening. Appreciate you, sir. Everyone have a good night.